Hey guys, it's Bethany with ABQ Creations here, and I've got another tutorial for you. Today I'm going to show you how to make the Mikayla sweater. I fell in love with this open weave pattern, and I thought it was just fantastic for end of summer coming into fall. So I'm going to show you what you'll need to get started on this. These are actually made in different materials. So this one is made out of a cotton thread, and in the tutorial I will be using the sugar and cream, and I actually ended up getting the big cone of it, and I still have plenty left on my cone from doing a size small. So you can see I have quite a bit of yarn left on this skein. I highly recommend it. It was great to work with, worked up quickly, and I only used one cone of yarn. So for this one I used the Impeccable yarn by Loops and Thread, and this is the size that would fit my 6-year-old daughter. I'm going to go into some information. If you want to skip ahead and go right into the tutorial, you can do that. I will put the time that you should start the tutorial at down below. But I did want to give some information just in case you wanted to do stripes or you wanted to keep it solid, and just give some tips that I didn't really get to during the tutorial. So for my daughter, which this fits, she's an average size 6-year-old, I ended up chaining on, I did 51 foundation double crochets to start her sweater. For my adult sweater, for this one that I'm wearing, and for this one, I did 61 foundation double crochets. And I will also link, if you don't know how to do a foundation double crochet, I will link to that below as well. I highly recommend you learn how to do that. You could do chains and then work your way back, but I found that it's not as stretchy on the bottom. So this is a much better method for a sweater. For the striping, I did 3 rows in each stripe for my daughter's, and in mine I did 4 stripes wide. And actually the sleeves I did a little bit differently because I wanted to have a cuff that folded up on the sweater, and I didn't want it to look weird like I was covering up all the colors. So I wanted to have, while it was folded up, have gray blend into the blue and then the gray again, so the striping looked nice. And so I finished up with gray on mine, and then I just did my cuff. So something to keep in mind. You can do whatever you would like. You don't even have to put a cuff on it. You can keep the sleeves short, you can keep them long, you can do whatever you want for this, but this is just kind of my tips for it. One other thing, if you decide to switch up the material, like I said, this is acrylic and I think it sits a little bit bulkier. This kind of hangs more, it's a little bit heavier, but it's nice. It's a nice cotton material, nice and natural. You can also try some thinner yarn. I am working with this Lions brand Shawl in a Ball, and it's got this nice ombre effect where it gently cascades into different colors, and I'm currently working on this. I'm going to make this again in a small, but instead of doing a foundation double crochet of 61, I did a foundation double crochet of 69 for this one. And again, that would be about a small. When you're going to measure, this is what I wanted to discuss on here because it was kind of hard to tell from my video what I was talking about. When you are measuring for your how wide you want to make it, because your foundation double crochet is going to end up really wide, and then after you add in the ribbing it's going to make it much narrower. But how I measured out my initial piece when I did my foundation double crochet, just so you can see if there's going to be enough room, is I measured the strip out around my side, and I came to right where my back starts, and I had, at my widest point, I had them meet up. So it went from here all the way around the front and then about to here. And that's kind of my rough estimate. I think if you size it up on yourself like that, it shouldn't end up too big and it shouldn't end up too small. That way you should be able to customize it pretty well for any size, because I don't know the exact number of chains, and it all depends on how tight or how loose you crochet, etc. But I thought that would be a good tip for you. That seemed to work out for me. As long as I made the strip come around my waist and then to my back, it seemed to work out nicely. So without further ado, I will get into the supplies that you need for this project, and you can get started on the tutorial. For this tutorial, you will need yarn. Today I'm using Sugar and Cream in the color Sage Green. You can use any worsted weight yarn that you're comfortable with. If you go lighter in yarn or with a lighter weight than worsted weight, just make sure you add on extra chains or foundation stitches at the beginning. A crochet hook. Today I'm using a 6.5 millimeter or a size K. Scissors, a needle for weaving in your ends, and stitch markers. Let's get started. To get started with your sweater, you will have to do foundationless double crochets. If you don't know how to do a foundationless double crochet stitch, please visit my other tutorial that's linked down below and come back to this video once you're done. Now I'm going to do a size small for my sweater, so that means I will do 61 foundationless double crochets. So I'm going to begin with chaining 4 stitches, and then I'm going to begin my foundationless double crochets. I'm going to finish up my stitches, and I'll meet back with you once I'm done. But if you'd like to go up in size, you can add on about 4 stitches for each size that you want to go up. So if I was going to do a medium, then I would go up to 65 stitches. Just keep in mind that you have to keep it to an odd number of stitches for this pattern to work. I'll meet you back here at the end of the row. I have finished my first 61 foundationless double crochet stitches, and I wanted to come back and show you what I've got so far. When you do the foundationless double crochet stitch, it actually ends up much stretchier than doing chain stitches and then working back through those chains with double crochets. However, if you're uncomfortable with doing foundationless double crochet stitches, you can definitely do chains to start off and then work your way back through with double crochets. Again, just make sure that when you're done, you ultimately end up with an odd number of double crochets. And when you're trying to figure out your sizing, I found a good way to do this was to wrap this around my waist and then have it start just at where my back starts and then wrap it around my stomach, and then it would come back to where my back starts again. And you want to make sure that it covers over half of you wrapping around this way, because it will shrink down and get narrower as you work up the rest of the pattern. So my double crochet foundationless stitches end up being much stretchier. And then once you add on the ribbing and then the pattern, it'll really shrink it up for you. So make sure that you have more than enough room rather than not enough. You don't want to end up with something that's too tight. And then you'll have to also figure out what your preference is, if you want it extra baggy or if you want it on a tighter fit. Mine will fit just like I showed in the beginning of the video on my mannequin. Okay, so let's get started with the next row. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to turn our work. And now this is where we start our ribbing. So you want to yarn over, and then you're going to do a front post double crochet. So to do that, you're going to insert your hook behind the post and come in like this, and then yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now on the next stitch, we're going to yarn over and then we're going to go through the back of it like this so that we're doing a back post double crochet. And we're going to alternate like that. So again, we're going to do front post, so we're going in through the front like this. And then the next one will be a back post again. So we go behind our stitch and go through the loop and do a double crochet around the post. So what that's going to do is it's going to give it this ribbing effect. Here's my other rectangle. So it's going to give it a little bit of a ribbing effect. So go ahead and keep alternating, and I will meet back with you once this row is done. I'm coming up to the end of my row, and you should already be able to tell that it's narrowed out a little bit. What we're going to do then is finish this up. So I've got my back post, double crochet, and now for my last one, which is my beginning chain stitches, I'm going to do the front post double crochet. I'm going to chain 2 and turn my work. Now when starting the next row, we're going to do the opposite of what we did the last round. So because this was the front post on the other side, we now have to keep it consistent and start with a back post double crochet. This can get kind of tricky when you're on the end. So you're going to take your hook and come down like this and then sneak it in between that post. Then we'll yarn over and then we'll pull that through here and over that beginning 2 chains and finish our double crochet. And you'll have to do that again at the other end, but it'll be easier once you get to the end of the row. So now we're going to just continue that same pattern alternating. We did a back post here, so we're going to do a front post double crochet. And it'll be easier to follow the pattern now. So if you can see that the ribbing is going away from you, you're going to go behind it and do a back post double crochet. When you do a front post double crochet, it pulls the ribbing out towards you. So continue that pattern all the way until the end of the row, and I'll meet back with you when you're done. I'm back at the end of this row, and I will finish up the last couple of stitches on camera with you. So to go behind this last stitch, it's a little bit easier. Okay, now we're going to chain 2, and I'm going to do one more row of ribbing, but you can make as many or as little rows of ribbing as you would like. So if you think that's a long enough length, you can stop right there, that's fine, or you can continue up a couple more rows, but I think one more should do it. I kind of like this length for it. So I will go ahead and do my last row of ribbing, and then I will meet back with you at the start. But again, you're going to do the opposite. So last time we started with working from behind the post, so this first stitch will be in front. And now you can see our ribbing. The next stitch we would work as a back post double crochet, front post. So again, you're always working with that ribbing to keep it consistent. So finish up that row and I'll meet back with you once it's done, and we'll start our repeat on our pattern. I'm to the end of my final rib row, and then I will show you how we work up our pattern. Okay, so now once we've finished our ribbing, you're going to chain 3, and then you're going to turn your work. And now we're going to do a double crochet, not in the first, not in the second, but the third double crochet. And what this does is our chain 3 is basically our first double crochet as well as our first chain, which takes up those 2 stitches. So that's why we work into the 3rd stitch. Now we're going to chain 1. We're going to skip 1 stitch and work a double crochet into the next stitch. Chain 1, skip a double crochet, and work into the next stitch. And you're going to continue on with this pattern until you get to the end of your row. Now that I've completed this row, I'm going to start the next row, which will be the repeat pattern that we continue on for the length of your sweater. So I'm going to chain 3, and I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to double crochet, not in the first double crochet or the chain space, but into the next double crochet. And we're going to continue that pattern across. So we're going to chain 1 and then double crochet in the next double crochet, skipping that chain space. Chain 1, next double crochet. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this pattern, and I'm going to work up my rectangle. When it's done, because I'm using the cotton yarn, it works up a little, it drapes a little longer. I had 32 of these rows total, not counting the ribbing. So 32 of where our pattern repeats. When I used acrylic yarn to make my sweater, I needed to do 34 rows to get about the same length. In fact, I think this one's still a little bit longer, hangs a little bit longer. But it's all up to you. If you want to make it into a crop top, you can. If you want to make it into a really long tunic, you can. So just kind of work up your rectangle for however long you want it to be. And then you'll measure it against the top of your neck and have it drape down. And I'll show that a little bit later in the video once I'm done and I'm about to connect these pieces. So I'll meet back with you after I finish these last 31 rows. I almost forgot the end of the row. When you come up to the end and you've done your double crochet in the last double crochet, you hit the first chain 3 from the previous round. So what you need to do is you need to do a double crochet in the second chain. So you're going to skip that first one and you're going to double crochet into that second chain. Once you've done this, you're going to chain 3, and again you're going to turn your work, and then you're going to continue the pattern. So you're going to skip the first double crochet and chain, work in there, and so on. So when you get to the end of each round, you will hit your chain 3 from the previous round. Just chain 1 and then skip. So you'll do your double crochet here, chain 1, and then you'll skip this first chain and go into the second. Okay, I will meet you back here at the end of the rows. Okay, you guys, once you finish your 2 rectangles, you should have something similar to this. I've already pieced them together on my mannequin here, and I've put stitch markers where I would like to connect the top. I like having a nice boat neck, so you can customize this. If you want to go further in and have it be a little bit of a tighter neck, that's fine, or a little bit more off the shoulder. I've gone in 13 stitches on each side is where I have mine marked. But you can do anything you would like on that. Just make sure that you can fit it over your head once it is stitched together and completed. So we're going to stitch, both of my sides look exactly the same, so there's really not a right side or a wrong side. But when you stitch things together, when you're doing typical sewing, you need to do right side to right side. So if you have a side that you prefer that has less noticeable mistakes or whatever, then you're going to want to have that facing in while you're stitching these together. So I left my yarn attached, so I'm going to start on this side. You can do single crochets or slip stitches to connect, go all the way across, and then I'll cut the yarn and weave it in, and then I'll do the same on this. And then you have to figure out where you want your armholes to be. And we're going to stitch up the side on each side. But you have to make sure that you do the same amount on each side. So count how many stitches you go up and then do the exact same on the opposite side. So you don't want to have it too small, you don't want to have too little of an armhole, and you don't want to have something, well, maybe you do. You can customize going down as far as you'd like. If you want to just connect it here and have a nice big armhole, you can do that. It's really up to you. That's where this is really nice. You can just customize it however you'd like. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off and I'll start stitching up the sides, and I will meet back with you when it's all completed. For connecting your shoulder, I wanted to show you how we're working on this. I already connected the other side with my slip stitches, and now I've cut off my yarn and I'm going to reattach it over here to do this shoulder. But I wanted to hop on and make sure that I showed you how I'm connecting these with my slip stitches. Now the important thing to remember is when you're joining, you will be doing one of the triple chains to a double crochet. Now the double crochet is easier to find the top, but you'll need to find, so for example right there is my double crochet. So I know I'll have to insert my hook there. For your triple chain that you started, you will need to insert into the second chain. So that's where you're going to connect it, because that's technically similar to your top. That's taking the place of a double crochet. So we're going to join our yarn, and then we're going to slip stitch across, or if you want you can single crochet. Either way is fine. Just going to tie off. So when I slip stitch across, I'm going to work in underneath this chain space, not into it. So I'm going to work into this space, or under it I should say, and I'm going to simply slip stitch. Then you're going to connect again at your double crochet. So you're going to go in through the top, and then you're going to find that double crochet right behind it, insert your hook, and slip stitch. And that'll keep it nice and even as you work along. If you're always working into the chain spaces at the same time, just I keep wanting to do a single crochet. And then matching up your double crochets right behind it. So go ahead and continue on and do the same thing right up the sides. So as you're looking at your side here, you'll work all the way up the side and up to where your armhole will start once you've matched that up and figured out how far you want to go. So you're going to stitch again into the spaces right on the sides of either the chains or the double crochets, and then you're going to work into the side of that double crochet as well. So it'll match up nicely as you work your way up, and then once you've done both shoulders and both sides, I'll meet you back here and we'll work on the sleeves. I now have my sides and my shoulders stitched up to where I want them, and now it's time to take care of the armholes. So the construction for this is a rectangle for the front, a rectangle for the back, and then a rectangle for each sleeve that's folded around and connected. What we're going to do for the sleeve, instead of creating two rectangles and then attaching them, we're just going to continue to stitch around and go back and forth, and then we'll just have one seam to sew on at the bottom of the sleeve. So we're going to attach down by where the armpit would go, and when you're looking at it you can attach here, and we're going to stitch all the way around to the other side of that where the seam is. So, and I kept this with the seams facing out. Don't turn it right side out just yet. You want to wait till after all your seams are completed. So we will stitch on both sleeves, then we'll turn it right, or then we'll stitch up that final seam on each arm, and then we'll flip it right side out. So I'm going to attach, and I'm actually going to, after I tie this knot, I'm going to chain 3, and you will see our pattern continue. So I've already chained 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to go into the side of this double crochet. So we're going to go right into that, and you'll see how our pattern will easily continue on. So we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to find the next double crochet space, and we're going to insert our hook and do our double crochet, and then we're going to chain 1, and you'll continue on just like the rest of our pattern all the way around your sleeve. So this will build it out. And it'll be the same concept when you come to the end of the sleeve. You're going to finish by stitching in here, right up next to your seam. So you're going to stitch into this one, and then you'll stitch in one more time because you're going to connect those seams as you work up. So go ahead and finish that round, and then you're going to start your new round by doing a chain 3, and then doing your double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, all the way back around, and you're just going to work back and forth like this. We are not working in the round. We will have a seam, and the reason we do that is to keep it consistent. If you work in the round, it will change the look, so that's why we're not working in the round. Just go ahead and work back and forth like that, and you work up the sleeve as long as you want, and we're not doing any decreases. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish several rounds, and then I'll meet back with you once I'm done. Coming up on the shoulder seam, I wanted to show you how I'm doing this. So I'm going to find the top space on the shoulder, and I'm going to do my double crochet, and then I will chain 1, and then right on the other side again I'm going to finish up and do my double crochet there, chain 1, and then continue on with the pattern up until the next seam. I'm back at where my seam meets, and I just figured I'd hop on and show you quickly what I'm doing. So I will go ahead and just find a space in there right next to the seam, and I'll do my last double crochet. I will chain 3, turn my work, and work back around the sleeve. So I finished 10 rows on the sleeve, and that's as long as I wanted. So you have a couple of options here. You can either add the cuff, or you can stop right here and just do your slip stitches down to seal your seam, and then you'll be done. So I'm going to go ahead and start on my cuff. It's going to be the same ribbing that we did at the beginning of our project at the bottom of the sweater. So I'm going to chain 2, and to start this off, we need to first get all of our double crochets in. So that first chain 2 is going to count as my first double crochet. Next, I'm going to do a double crochet into the chain space. Again, not into the chain, but into the chain space. Then I'm going to do another double crochet into the top of this double crochet. And I'm going to continue on all the way around the cuff. So I'll be back with you when it's done. Once you have your whole row of double crochets done, then we'll turn and work our ribbing. I'm at actually the last couple of stitches because I have my chain 3 here. So I need to do 1 down in the chain space, and then I need to do 1 more double crochet into that second chain, and that'll end off my row. Okay, so to start the ribbing, I'm going to chain 2, turn my work, and then I'm going to do my front post double crochet, followed by a back post double crochet, and then I'm going to continue to alternate to get that ribbing effect. So go ahead and continue that for the rest of the row, and I will meet back with you at the end. At the end, I'm going to do my last front post double crochet. I'm going to chain 2, turn my work, and I'm going to do 2 more rows of the ribbing. So remember, in order to do that, I ended that one with a front post double crochet. Well, now that I'm on the back side of it, to keep it consistent, I need to do a back post double crochet. So I'm going to go in from behind and come through that part, and then finish out the double crochet. Okay, so now I'm going to continue on and alternate. That was back, so now I'm going to do front. So again, anywhere that the ribbing is popping out at you, you do a front post. Anywhere that it looks like it's pressing and going the other way, you go and do a back post. So continue that on and do this row plus 1 more, and then that should be good for the ribbing. And then I'll meet back with you for the final seam. I have completely finished up the ribbing on my cuff, and now it's time to stitch the seam shut. Please make sure that you are stitching on the inside of the sweater. So all of your stitching, all of your seams should still be outside of the sweater. If you turned it inside out for whatever reason, or right side out I should say, make sure that you have the wrong side facing out and you're looking at all your seams before you go ahead and start stitching up your sleeves. So to start stitching, we're going to go into this corner, and then we're going to work into that last double crochet right behind it. And we're going to do our slip stitch, and then we're going to continue to slip stitch all the way down the cuff. Now be careful and make sure that you're lining your cuff up so that once you get to this point where that pattern of your main body and sleeve start, that it's all matched up. So once you get to this point, you can go in through there, and we're just going to match up our seam. So now we'll go in the chain space and slip stitch, and then into the double crochet. And keep those lined up. So now you can just go ahead and finish up your stitching, and I'll meet back with you at the point. I'll meet back with you once we have it all stitched up. Once your stitching is complete down the arm, we're going to do our final slip stitch into the seam once we come to it that ran all the way up the side of the sweater. And I'm going to end with a chain, and then I'm going to cut my end, pull it through, and now I'm going to weave in my ends. I already went around my sweater and got all of the other ends sewn in, so this is the last one that I have. And I'll do it on camera just so you can see how I weave in my ends. And some people crochet over their ends as they work and save just the one at the very end to sew in, which is nice. You have less seams to sew in. You will get it to stay much better if you sew in your ends at the end of your project, but I usually don't like this part. This is my least favorite part of my projects, is weaving in all the ends. So if you just want to crochet over your work, I won't tell anybody. Okay, let's get that turned right side out and we'll take a look at how it turned out. Okay, you guys, here is the finished product, the Mikayla sweater. I am so in love with this, and I love the way that the cotton just drapes. This is a fantastic project, and it doesn't use a lot of yarn. It works up quickly as far as sweaters go. I highly recommend it. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them for me down below. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please subscribe to my channel so you can stay up to date on all of my video releases, and like this video with a thumbs up. Thank you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day.